2 more years passed, and throughout the entire Tobolsk area, most people nearly forgot about the fearsome figure of the gigantic runaway prisoner. All of a sudden, one morning, the prisons of Tobolsk were thrown into chaos by a grotesque crime, which was as heinous as those two murders committed in the heart of the forest when Thomas Ryskov escaped. The prison warden, the cruel and stern Casimir Petrov, was found murdered in his bed, choked in his own blood. His head was gruesomely split in two, with a poorly written note on it that said, "See, you filthy old dog, you got what you deserved for everything you did to me." Everyone's hair stood on end after reading this note. There was no room for doubting that the murderer again was Thomas, who had escaped from the prisons and was alive, and was continuing with greater rage his vile work of revenge. This new murder created so much terror that all the local inhabitants settled down in their homes very early, locked their doors well, and kept a weapon by their bed, just in case. Even so, every so often, they would hear about a new murder committed by the same means as all the previous ones, as well as robberies, shootings, and vandalism. The phantom of death wandered about everywhere. Everywhere people held their breath and said, "Thomas Hryskov, Wolfman Tom, is the dreadful executioner of them all. Who will be able to resist him? And who is capable of killing him?" The local and regional authorities were in turmoil, and day and night, night and day, they discussed how to solve this problem and calm the distressed people who wanted promises of safety. But then the heavy winter with its tremendous banks of snow created a fortress for the murderer and greatly hindered the search parties that were launching whole expeditions against this wild beast that sought bloody revenge wherever it smelled a living being. One by one, the years rolled by, and Thomas ended up as a nightmarish threat, the choking terror and hellish anxiety of the entire area. Thomas's name became synonymous with everything crude, criminal, heartless, and satanic. Even in St. Petersburg, the higher military officers would hold serious discussions about how to exterminate the criminal, who was a unique phenomenon of crime in the history of Tobolsk. In fact, the terror from this infamous killer's reputation was so great even in St. Petersburg that when a hussar dressed up as Wolfman Tom at an aristocratic ball as a joke, more than 15 aristocratic ladies suffered serious fainting spells. Needless to say, that young hussar was severely punished. 10 whole years passed. They rolled by slowly, painfully, full of nightmarish terror and melancholy waiting. 10 years of terror and agony for all the local inhabitants. The young mothers would tell their unruly children, "Look out! Thomas is coming to eat you!" And they, frightened beyond belief, would run and hide in their mother's embrace without daring to lift their little heads from their mother's apron. Even grown men, when they wanted to affirm the truth of what they said, would swear, "May I have no joy in life, may I die at the hands of Wolfman Tom." While others, wanting to tease or terrify someone, would shout, "Watch out! Wolfman Tom's hand is waiting for you. He'll give you what you deserve." And this is truly what Thomas did. Like a lightning bolt, he would strike wherever he thought he could do damage. He showed no discrimination. You would think that he had no heart that could be moved by the cries and tears of the people he mangled, as if he had a piece of black granite instead of a heart. You would think that blood did not circulate to his nerves, but rather opium that turned him into a phantom of death, who would sow destruction in his path, indiscriminately killing the young and the old. Thomas's rampage had brought such despair and hopelessness to the inhabitants and authorities that the nearby monasteries held all-night vigils, entreating God to deliver the area from the scourge of Thomas. In fact, the authorities, to save face, issued a new wanted sign that quintupled the reward for capturing or killing him. Especially at that time when Pascha was approaching. It was around the end of March. Some people were counting on their luck. Everyone stood in awe and greed before the posted reward and mumble to themselves, "I swear, how fortunate the person will be who is lucky enough to find Thomas's hideout and hand him over to the authorities. He will be able to celebrate Pascha magnificently. Just think how many well-fed lambs he could buy with all that money, how much vodka, how much black caviar and other delicacies he could enjoy if he manages to rid this place of this arch-criminal who is ravaging everything and everyone in the whole area." In fact, the townspeople agreed that since they could not arrest him, they should by all means try to kill him and hang his filthy head in the square for all to see, and believe that the danger of his presence was gone. All the hunters of the area held a meeting, and the authorities promised them that whoever would bring back the head of Thomas would enjoy a special national reward and subsidy for life. But even though the whole area was combed night and day by scouts and hunting dogs, and even though ambushes and traps were set everywhere, Wolfman Tom, that wild man who thirsted for blood, was nowhere to be seen, nor did he leave a single trace any more. After another 6 months passed without any sign of him, many people started to believe that he might have been mutilated to death in a battle with one of the hungry wild beasts of the forest that didn't realize that Tom was just as wild as it was. Thus, people took courage and started to go about more freely. The authorities stopped trying to catch the uncatchable Thomas, and the more time passed, the more the stories of Wolfman Tom became like fairy tales, like myths that young mothers would tell their children to scare them when they misbehaved.